All right, so on your front cover sheet, you guys are self-reflecting. How did you feel about 5-1? Did you feel pretty good about writing decimals as fractions and fractions as decimals? If you're not super confident, just leave it as the see it. So that way then you know you need to focus on these two IXL lessons. And then when you're done with that, give me a thumbs up. Nice and high in the air. So that way I can see you're ready to move on. Good. Nice and high in the air. A thumbs up. And then take your thumb and put it on 5-2. And we're going to read this one out loud together. So I want to hear everybody reading 5-2. 5-2 says, I can add and subtract fractions with the same denominators. Go ahead and shade in the see it. And I do want to remind you guys, these two lessons are under 6th grade. So make sure you go under 6th grade. So today, we're only working with fractions. We're going to be adding and subtracting fractions with common denominators or with like denominators. So you can flip to your 5-2 notes. All right, so when you guys go to add or subtract fractions, the first thing that you have to do is check to see if they have a common denominator. So if we look at our first example here, we have a negative set or a 7 in our denominator and a 7 in our denominator. Go ahead and underline those two 7s for me. Those are my denominators. So currently, do we have a common denominator? Absolutely. So if we have a common denominator, we're going to go ahead and keep that denominator. So I'm going to just automatically write the 7. That's in the bottom because that's the denominator. Remember, denominator goes down. Now, nope, denominator is down. See how it starts down? So it's going to stay down. Denominator's on the bottom, means down. In my numerator, I see that I have a negative 3. So I'm going to go ahead and write a negative 3. And I'm taking away 5. So I'm going to write minus 5. So I'm doing negative 3. I'm taking away 5. You guys are welcome to use a calculator on this lesson, but I'm going to do it without. If I have two negatives, that really says negative 3 plus negative 5. So go ahead and put a plus sign between them. They're both negative. So we're adding negative 3 plus negative 5. So how many negatives do we have? 8. So I'm going to write negative 8 in my numerator. In my denominator, what do I have? 7. Very good. But this answer currently, negative 8/7, does anybody remember what type of fraction that is? That's called an improper fraction. And we want to take that improper fraction and turn it to what? You remember? It's improper because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Oh, good. Nice. I'm going to give you a prayer ticket for that. Good observation. I like that thinking. Here's this for you. So, when we have that negative, one way that you could view it is that the negative doesn't really go with the 8. The negative just goes with the entire fraction. So if you move it out front, do you see how then if you just ignore the negative, it's improper? That's a great observation though. So how many times does 7 go into 8? 1 time. So go ahead and write your whole number 1. How many are left over? 1/7. Good. Now, initially we just ignored that negative. We kind of covered it up and pretended it wasn't there. But now we've got to take that negative and put it in front of the entire mixed number because that whole thing is negative. So your answer here would be negative 1 and 1/7. All right, let's take a look at this one. First thing that I want you guys to do is go ahead and underline your denominators for me. Underline your denominators. And what did you underline? 15. Very good. So do we have the same denominator? Absolutely. So keep that denominator. So go ahead and we're going to start writing our answer. We're putting that 15 down in the denominator. It's on the bottom of our fraction. In my numerator, I have 11 minus a negative 4. So I'm going to write 11 minus negative 4. What do you guys remember about that minus and negative? Kind of. Even simpler than switch. It's technically addition. Very good. You guys remember doing that giant plus sign? When you have two negatives, make that giant plus sign. And then what is 11 plus 4? 15. So we get 15 over 15, actually, because our denominator is still 15. What's 15 divided by 15? 1. So our final answer for this question is 1. Questions so far? All right, we're actually going to jump down to this example right here, this you do. I'm going to skip the I do for a moment. We are now adding mixed numbers together. Go ahead and underline your denominators for me for this you do box right here. Underline the denominators. So what are you guys underlining? The 14s. Good. Do we have the same denominator? Absolutely. So I need to leave some space to write my whole number, but I'm going to go ahead and write that 14 in my denominator and leaving a big space here for my whole number. And now let's go ahead and add our fractions. We can do this with mental math. Our numerator is a 3 plus 5. What's 3 plus 5? 8. So we're going to go ahead and write 8 14ths. 3 plus 5 gives me 8. And then let's add our whole numbers. What's 3 plus 12? 15. So we get 15 and 8 14ths. Who can raise their hand and tell me what to do next? So far, we've added our fractions together. Good. Very good. We have to simplify. What are 8 and 14 both divisible by? 2. So divide by 2. We get 15 and 4 sevenths. Yep, 15 and 4 sevenths. Yep. No, great question. I'm going to give you a pirate ticket for that too. That's great observation. No, the whole number will always stay the same. The only part that gets simplified is the fraction. Here's a pirate ticket for you. I like that question. Whoops. All right, now let's backtrack to this one right here. And there's a specific reason that I saved this one to be the last example on this page. We've got 11 and 2 15ths. And we're subtracting 6 and 3 15ths. Start by underlining your denominators for me. And what did you underline? 15, right? We're underlining 15. So now what we want to do is subtract our fractions. We can't, right? That's tough. There are actually two different things we can do here. Okay, what did you say? 2 minus 3 would be a negative 1. I like that. Let's go ahead and do you see how in the numerator here, if I have 2 and I take away 3, I'm going to get a minus 1. You guys agree with that? And then my denominator is what? 15. So I've got that negative 1 15. Now the negative doesn't really have to go with the 1. The negative could get written out in front of that 1 15th. So we're really just subtracting 1 15th from our whole number. You guys see how that negative then makes it a subtraction of 1 15th? Now let's subtract what's 11 minus 6? 5. So our whole number is a 5. So we have to take this 5 and subtract 1 15th from it. So instead of a 5, it'll dot down to a 4. And how many 15ths are left over? 14 15ths. Very good. Does that make sense what we did? Here. Okay. So you were with me here where I did 2 minus 3 was that negative 1 15th, right? So that means that we're taking away 1 15th. 11 minus 6 gave me this 5. So then think about a candy bar. If I have 5 candy bars and I'm taking away 1/15 of a candy bar, here, let me draw a picture. So these are my 5 candy bars, right? I only want to take away 1/15. So I'm going to take this last candy bar and break it into 15 pieces. And I'm only taking away 1 out of those 15 pieces. So do you see how we still have 4 holes remaining? That's where the 4 holes comes from. And then we're only taking 1 out of the 15 pieces. So we still have 14 out of 15 left over. Make sense? Candy bars are a great example, aren't they? All right, flip to your next page. I'm going to start a second video here. Why don't you go ahead and do these two? Get started on these two for me.